Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. This proceeding is being broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. Board of Water and Power Commissioners, please say present for roll call. Commissioner NURIT KATZ.
Present.
President Richard KATZ. Commissioner LEHRER. Vice President MCGRAW. Commissioner PINDER.
Present.
5 board members, a quorum is present. Mr. President?
Thank you, Jonathan. Hey, George, what number is the security code? One. That's why I missed it. Welcome, everybody. Apologies for being a few minutes late. A lot of things going on this morning, but appreciate you all being here, and we will get into the agenda. We have a number of things to do, but before I start, I do want to draw everyone's attention, if they haven't seen it yet. This is mandatory reading for people on the dais in the audience, but the LA Business Journal did a huge front page story on our colleague, Commissioner LEHRER. So, so the obvious question is, Mia, what are you running for? But congratulations, that's very cool.
Yes, it's very nice.
Very cool. Also, too, want to, again, and I do it almost every meeting because I don't think we can ever do it enough, thank the women and men who work at LADWP. Our CEO announced last week that the boil water order was lifted in the Palisades after exactly 2 months after the fire started. Not to put down a fellow city in California, but when Paradise, California burned 5 years ago, it took them 2 years to get the water back. It took us 2 months. And that's because of the efforts of the men and women who work in the department, 24/7, 365 if necessary. John, all the people did great, what did I say, John? David? All the people did a phenomenal job, and the same on the power side. I believe, Janice, we have power back in the Palisades also now. So wouldn't necessarily recommend living there, but it's getting much better. But again, in 2 months, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment considering how widespread the devastation was, and we've all heard about it, and we've seen pictures of it. It's, again, a tribute to the women and men of this department who, bust their butt and do what they have to do to provide service to people who live in Los Angeles. And we are very grateful to their leadership and to them and for the difference they're making in this city. So thank you again to everybody. If you see a DWP employee, thank them, pat them on the back. Don't throw anything at them because they're doing their best and they're doing extraordinary work. So with that, we've gone through opening remarks by me, obviously. Commissioners, comments? Conte, public comment?
To the people providing public comment, when it is your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you'd like to speak to. You will have 2 minutes per item, up to 4 minutes total. If you are speaking on a specific item, you must stay on topic. Otherwise, your time will be forfeited, and it will revert to general public comment. If you would like to speak for general public comment as well as a specific agenda item, you will have 1 additional minute on top of whatever time you have for your comments on the agenda item or items. If you're only speaking for general public comment, you will have 2 minutes. During general public comment, members of the public may speak to any of the items and anything else within LADWP subject matter jurisdiction. A timer will sound when your time allotment has expired. Public comment is now open at this time. The first speaker is David Bolog.
Good morning, commissioners, staff, and others. I'm here to speak on general public comment. Last meeting, I gave a brief overview of how we came to out hydrofluorosilicic acid, a
waste byproduct of the fertilizer industry to our city's water supply. I talked about a court case brought about by a complaint against the EPA through the Toxic Substance Control Act. The court ruled that fluoride in drinking water presents an unreasonable risk of injury to human health. There's a growing and a robust body of evidence indicating an association between fluoride intake and cognitive impairment in children. The pooled benchmark dose analysis concluded that a 1-point drop in IQ of a child is to be expected for each 0.28 milligrams per liter of fluoride in a pregnant mother's urine. If 0.28 milligrams per liter brings down IQ 1 point, the level this department fluoridates water brings the IQ of our youth down over 2 points. I'm still baffled after our experience with the Nuremberg trial that anybody can think it's okay to forcibly medicate a populace against their will. Yet President KATZ, you decided to play Dr. KATZ and do just that. You didn't listen to the constituents who had issues with this while you were legislators. I could understand if nobody had a problem with doing this, and then you decided, okay, let's try it. But that wasn't the case. There were plenty of people in California that were against this forced medicating through the water supply. What do we have to show for this? Our students, through test scores and other markers, are not doing well in their education achievements. The most shocking reason given during the discussion with the legislator was that poor people of color couldn't get fluoride, so we had to bring it to everybody. The appalling racism of the argument still chills me. Water fluoridation has been proven by the courts to be harmful. While we wait for the EPA's decision on how it will set new rules ordered by the court over this case on water fluoridation, I hope Los Angeles, California will go the way of Utah and many counties in Florida and stop the poisoning of our water supply. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tamerlyn Gotti.
Good morning. I will be quick. I know these are challenging times, and I thank you for your service. I know you are all volunteers. As some of you may recall, I and my firm did some important work for the board. The board approved payment of those fees, and some, but not all of it has been paid. And I've been trying for about a year to get some response on that. And so I have here the last of the bills for each of the commissioners and the general manager. I don't know if my emails have fallen into spam, but I wanted to just give this to you, and please reach out to you. My phone numbers are on there, but I'd appreciate that the final set of the bills be paid. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is John Humperville.
Good morning. My name is Jack Humphreyville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I'm chair of the DWP Advocacy Committee that meets, every first Saturday of every month. I'm also a former member of the Coast Guard Reserves. I might add, a 7-digit draft dodger. I want to speak on public comment and also on item 6. My first thought is the receivable situation of the Department of Water and Power as it relates to the city of Los Angeles. In May a year ago, Fred Pickle, the ratepayer advocate, came out there and said that the city was in arrears by about $130 million on the receivables, of which $90 million was 120 days past due. That is unacceptable. The city should be paying its bills, especially when the city's general fund is reimbursed by the Rec and Parks and the library, as well as all the special funds. So they're banging the trade, and they're also using money, playing the float with these various people. And I think it's up to you guys to go after the city, not only for what they owe you, but also for the penalty fees, which is 18% compounded daily, which basically works out to be a rate of 20% a year. So 20% on $130 million is $26 million. And, where's the dough? You guys got to be all over that like a cheap suit from my perspective. I recognize that the city's in big trouble. The budget's a mess. But, that's not your fault. That's their fault. And yes, the city owns it, but the ratepayers and the taxpayers are two different entities. I want to also talk, the second point is the stormwater capture parks plan. That's a $300 million deal, and I think, which was approved by you, and I don't think you guys did your due diligence at all. It's 106. The capital cost is $165,000 per acre foot, which is completely unreasonable. Yes, you may get some subsidies or grants from, I think it's Measure S, and various other things, but that's still taxpayer money. And to go out and pay $165,000 per acre foot is just completely unreasonable. How does that compare to Pure Water LA? It doesn't. The third thing I wanted to talk about is the rates. Water rates, according to the preliminary budget plan, are going to go up 9%, and the power rates are going to go up 17%. I'm sure that can be justified. Where I'm coming from is, what are the rates going to be in 10 years? What are the rates going to be for LA 100? We've been told it's going to quadruple. For Pure Water LA, that's another quadruple of our rates. How are they going to pay for that? But we haven't gotten any concrete answers. In my past life, I worked as an investment banker. I worked for a number of utilities, Hartford Electric, Boston Edison, Tex Utilities. And every time we did deals for them, we'd have detailed projections as to what it's going to cost and what was the impact on the ratepayers. I did some stuff for Puerto Rico, too, at one point in time. And so, I haven't seen those kind of numbers. You guys are going out there and doing a conga line, saying, okay, let's do 100% renewables. But there's been no conversations about what's going to happen to the impact. What would be the savings as opposed to going to 100% renewables? What if you went to 80 or 90? That would probably cut that compounded rate of 14% a year to 7% a year. I don't think ratepayers can live with 14% a year when you quadruple your rates over a 10-year period. My final thing is, I'm very concerned about the Department of Water and Power and the litigation relating to the fires. My issue is, I'm concerned that the city is going to dump all that on the Department of Water and Power. The city's broke. They have no ethics. They have no qualms about going after your cash stash, which you need, as just an operating reserve. Right. And so you're the deep pocket, and the ratepayers the deep pocket. And I don't think it's fair for them to come after us ratepayers and pay for their sins. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Public comment is now closed at this time.
Okay. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to take item 1, security contract, and push that to the next meeting. And the reason, Mayor called last night, and we had a discussion about this, and the Mayor made it very clear that she would like to see this a much less expensive contract than the one that we have before us. We're going to work on that between now and the next meeting and see if we'll get either a couple more quotes on it or pare down the quote that we have. But for that reason, and at the mayor's request, we're going to put this over for 2 weeks. So, moving along. Janice, up to you.
Good morning, President KATZ. Like you mentioned, we lifted the do not drink advisory on March 7th. So I want to thank our water distribution operation guys and gals and our water quality and all the volunteers and other organizations in the department that helped ensure that we were able to do this in record time. I also want to thank the Division of Drinking Water from the State Regulating Board. They work hand in hand with us to ensure that we meet their requirements and their strict requirements to lift the do not drink notice. We couldn't have done it without them. This is the first time that a fire of this magnitude has gone through this process, and so it was a learning lesson for us and for the Division of Drinking Water, and it has been 7 days a week since the moment that we were able to be back in the Palisades. So I'm going to pass it to Anselmo to talk more about the do not drink notice, but I wanted to acknowledge those members.
Thank you, Janice. So yes, Commissioners, as mentioned before, on the 7th of March, we lifted the do not drink notice. It took a lot of work and effort by pretty much everybody in the water system. We had folks in the field on a daily basis, flushing, testing, retesting, stagnating the water, but also a lot of folks that were in the office working on plans and working with the Division of Drinking Water that, as Janice mentioned, they were instrumental because this was really a learning experience for all of us. And I think that we have set a pretty high bar now when it comes to response to these type of events. Certainly to the community out there, thank you for their patience. We do recommend that as you go back to your home or your business, that you flush your system for at least 10 minutes before resuming using the water. But just rest assured that we've done a significant amount of testing. We took over 460 samples in that entire area. So it wasn't done in a rush. We wanted to make sure that when we were given the clearance, that we could say with clear conscience that the water is safe to drink. And I can tell you the water is safe to drink. So wanted to put that out there. I also wanted to mention.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just because I had somebody ask me this question the other day. The reason why, I mean, you flush the system, which is the system to brings the water to the house. The reason you're asking people to flush their internal things is we can't flush what's inside the house. They have to run water through it themselves in order for anything that may have gotten caught in there to be flushed out of it. And that's the reason why it's not it's not duplicative and it's not an extra step. It's just one more safeguard to make sure, as I understand it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right. So by homeowners or property owners flushing their own lines, they're ensuring that any water that's within their pipes is also clear. We've cleared the system, but we don't have the ability to flush on private property. So we're asking the property owners to partner with us by flushing the water. And because of that, and with the fact that we're asking them to flush their system, the department is also crediting each of the customers there with $50 as a result of them having to flush their system as opposed to consuming that water. So that is something that was done in consideration too. I do know that when we made an announcement, there was a lot of interest by the media out there. We did have the day after we made the announcement. So on Friday, we actually had staff go out and put door hangers, letting every individual property owner know that the water was safe to drink. That was done at an abundance of caution to make sure that if somebody wasn't watching the news or looking at the computer, that they knew was safe to drink. So one of the local TV channels did pick up a story. I believe we have that video. And if they can cue that video, I think you'll be able to see the great work that was being done and how well our staff represented the department as well.
For the first time since the fire, people living and working in the Palisades are being told they can safely drink the water. NBC4's Alex Rozier joins us live with those details. Alex.
Yeah, it's really been an extensive effort from LADWP, collecting nearly 500 samples. Now exactly 2 months since the start of the Palisades fire, the water here is safe to drink. Today, LADWP went door to door in the Pacific Palisades as they share the news that the water here is safe to use and drink.
It's been quite an effort to try to restore water quality in the Palisades area.
LADWP's Bernice Barajas said their team has worked 7 days a week, collecting hundreds of samples to ensure the water is safe for customers.
We've done a tremendous amount of flushing, stagnating, retesting, just to ensure that the water quality is safe for potable use and that the tap water is safe to drink now.
Though some homeowners said they still have concerns about drinking the water, people like Jonathan Batt do not.
I trust the system. I trust the water quality testing.
Batt has been monitoring LADWP's website. They've been posting reports with updates after collecting water samples.
If you read the reports and you go through them, it wasn't like it was 1,000 different chemicals. It was really benzene was the one that was coming back positive. So if they cleared it, they cleared it. I think people are really just kind of like apprehensive because, they hear it was bad and like, how could it be good? At some point, it's got to be good.
LADWP recommends everyone flush their system by turning on every faucet for 10 minutes before returning to regular use. If you still have concerns, you can call LADWP for additional testing at your home.
We'll call the water quality hotline and we'll get their information and then we'll set up an appointment so that we can collect some water sample. We'll send it to our water quality lab for the results and then we'll contact the customer with the results.
But John trusts that it's safe to drink, and even though he can't move home just yet, This is a good first step.
There's some cleaning that we can do ourselves, that some of the drapes, some of the textiles that can be washed, and we weren't going to wash them prior with dirty water or chemically infused water. So now we can start using the home more as a center to be able to kind of get the process rolling.
I want to show you the number for LADWP's water quality hotline. If you have questions or want additional testing at your home, it is a free service. Call the hotline number right there at 213-367-3182. And one other note, LADWP is giving customers here a $50 credit so you can flush your system on all your faucets for 10 minutes. They say the water may initially appear discolored, but after that 10-minute flush, it should return back to normal. Again, you only have to do that one time. Reporting live, I'm Alex Rozier, NBC4 News.
Might I say something?
For the first time since the fire, people living and working.
While this is a wonderful public praise of something that we almost take for granted, I do want to say that I would caution all of our engineers and public people, we do not want to get into cherry picking news coverage. Because if we're going to run even that, which was perfect, it was humane, it is appreciated. But then we'd be in the position that if they run something negative next week, are we going to put that up and say, here is a capsule of how this station saw us? So I just want us to be a little cautious of that. It was an easy way for the commissioners who may not have seen that particular coverage to experience it, but we just do not want to lift things from the press and from television. They do a good job of saying whatever they want to say, whether it's negative on this side or positive on this side. So that's how I felt as I was watching that particular thing. And it's no disrespect to you. It was in a capsule. But you realize if we're going to pick good capsules, we might have to pick negative capsules. So I just would say that I personally caution us even about promoting the good of news coverage when we certainly feel so ashamed when it's not in our favor. So we just have to learn to live with the good and live with the bad as it comes from the press. And all of us are doing our job. So we don't have to, get excited when somebody says, hey, you're doing your job. Because we are doing our job 24/7, whether that press is there or not. Or whether someone turns what we're doing on its head and says it's not good.
Okay.
So I just feel very strongly about that. I know what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the comment. One thing I wanted to also end with is that despite the fact that the do not drink has been lifted, we're going to continue to monitor and test the system. That's part of the requirements that are being produced by the Division of Drinking Water. So I'm still going to have staff out there at times that are going to be monitoring, taking samples, and just ensuring that there's nothing out there that we're unaware of. Just wanted to put that out there for the folks that are watching the board meeting that might be concerned. We're not just done and moved out. We're still going to be there actively monitoring and reporting that to the state.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I just want to echo, I know President KATZ earlier alluded to how difficult it is for residents whose homes are still standing to move back into the Palisades, given everything that their community has been through and all of the loss. And I just want to say thank you. Your team has done an amazing job moving this forward, and I know it means a lot to those community members that they can be safe in their homes and know that the water is safe to drink. It's helping in what is a very difficult time for that community. I also heard very positive feedback from the community about the water dashboard that was shared in that clip. People really appreciated that transparency, that detail, and I think that type of dashboard can be a model for future programs, for DWP to consider that type of reporting, transparency, ease of use. It was really a great best practice, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for saying that, because that dashboard is just unbelievable. I just wish that somehow we really could keep that going for many, many things. It's so perfect. Thank you, Commissioner, for acknowledging that.
I think, Commissioner, that what's going to happen is folks have seen this, especially the state. This may become the standard that they're going to want to set for other utilities if in the future somebody's in a similar situation, because it provides a lot of transparency. It provides all the data, all the information on the test results, and also having the maps available. Like I spoke at the last board meeting, for most people, they don't know what a service zone is. You know, so when you have a map where you can put in your address and know exactly which zone you're in, that helps provide clarity. Because a lot of folks, when we started, were not quite certain as to what it meant. And I think having the visual was very helpful. If the CEO allows me, I just wanted to make a comment about water supply. Since we're talking about water, typically when we have dry years, I like to keep the board informed about how we're doing water supply. As you know, the water year started in October, and it started out really dry, and we were all very concerned. But as you can tell, and even today, we're getting precipitation. There's been a fair amount of snowpack building in the Sierras, to the point that right now we are approximately at 88% of normal for April 1st. And there are several storms that are hitting the Eastern Sierra, the Sierra Nevadas, as we speak, and we'll be hitting it for the next couple of weeks. So our expectation is that we're going to be pretty close to 100% of normal by the time we're done, which I think is great news based on where we were just a few months ago. Locally, from a stormwater capture perspective, as you know, we built a lot of capacity for stormwater capture, and there hasn't been a lot of rain in LA, but we've been able to capture up to date almost 17,000 acre feet of water. So we continue to capture as much water as we can, working with the county, and then spreading it into spreading basins and recharging the groundwater basin. And then just lastly, because the snowpack is so great now, on the state water project side, as you know, the Division of Water Resources, Department of Water Resources, they announced their allocation. And the allocation right now for the state water project contractors is 35%. So Metropolitan Water District, which is a contractor, is allowed to get 35% of their total contract amount. They can buy up to 2 million acre feet. So 35%, you talk about 700,000 acre feet of water, roughly, that they are able to get from the state and sell to their member agencies. Thank you.
Hey, Anselmo, can we talk about San Ynez Reservoir and what's the status of the repairs there?
Absolutely. So with San Ynez Reservoir, the contractor, Layfields, was out there for 2 weeks or so. They were able to repair the larger tear, which ended up being a little over 200 feet in length. They did find an additional tear. Actually, there were 3 additional tears total, in addition to the large one. Those have all been fixed. They also have fixed the pinholes that were found. Some of them were due to embers that were falling on the floating cover itself. They're working right now on building these floats, because these floats are there to create a trough so that when there is rainwater, it can collect there and the rain pump can pump the water off the cover. They're building that right now, and they're going to come back on site on Monday, install those, and also they're going to do what we call an inflation test. They're going to inflate it to make sure that the cover is actually completely sealed. Right now, we still expect that we're going to be able to fill the reservoir to the proper level and be ready by May 1st. So we're making a lot of good progress there, and the expectation is that by May 1st, the reservoir will have water and be available for service.
Thank you. I want to highlight the interactive map too. I think it was a great job by our IT department, communications department, and water department. I want to have that map continuously be updated as we continue to do testing on the Palisades. Also, let's talk about power and power restoration. And power was restored a little bit faster than water. There's some areas still that are without power, about 100 and some houses. We're in the last stages of hard-to-reach areas, so we've been setting poles with helicopters and cranes, and I'll let Dave talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Janice. Good morning, Commissioners. So like she said, we have set about 800 poles for our restoration and over 50,000 feet of conductor just to get the large circuits back in the neighborhoods. We have previously reported to the board that we had restored power to all standing structures. So the numbers that you see coming in now are right around 143, 109. Depending on which day we're talking about, has to do with the customers repopulating the area, and then we're becoming aware of a standing structure that they're intending to reoccupy, so that makes it onto our radar and we start to track it. So we do have an on-site incident commander out at the Palisades Recreation Center, what we've been calling the UROC, Mr. John Vanacore. It's open to the public as of March 1st, so as people start to let us know what areas they intend to repopulate, we also drive around and kind of do a patrol to look to see where construction crews are working to give us a little bit of a glimpse ahead of what area we need to start concentrating our restoration efforts on. So we are continuing to work towards undergrounding the system out there. We have already, our engineering groups have already produced about 4,000 feet of underground conduit design in a very short amount of time. We're very impressed with how quickly they did that, and we expect that same level of productivity for everything moving forward. We'll let them know that. We do intend to start construction on that on March 17th, which is next week. We do have a meeting with Council District 7 with Tracy Park this Thursday afternoon to discuss with her our plans for the Palisades area and whether or not we do need to build an additional distribution station out there. It's something we've been trying to do for the last couple of decades, but we think now with our new voltage that we're bringing to the system, we may not need to do that, and that's actually good news for Brentwood, for West LA, for a lot of our areas out there. So we're very excited about that, and we have that meeting on Thursday afternoon.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I have a question. So amazing work by your team getting this done as swiftly as you can. I was speaking to different residents over the past week or two as part of outreach to the impacted community. And one of the questions that was asked was, when people get a permit to begin construction, will they be able to, fairly quickly get access to power on those sites? My question is, I know there is this joint center now for permitting, et cetera, which is really exciting, and it's great to see the collaboration among different city departments. Is DWP working closely with building and safety or the appropriate departments to know when these permits are being given out as they come in to be able to anticipate where these power needs are?
Excellent question. Thank you for pointing that out. So the city did stand up the Disaster Recovery Center more towards the West LA area, and that's very centric for residences. What we're doing at the Palisades Recreation Center is utility specific, but we do have liaisons from the department at the city's Disaster Recovery Center and vice versa. So we've actually accommodated Building and Safety, Bureau of Engineering, and all the telecom, even Edison and SoCal Gas at the Palisades Rec Center. So the idea is that we know where these permits are being issued, so we'll use that information to start concentrating our construction schedule so we can stay ahead of the needs.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
We're also working with the Department of Building Safety on a spec for the panel so that we're able to serve them overhead. And then once we're ready to serve them underground, that panel has the ability to take power from both overhead and underground. And that way, as soon as they're ready, we will serve them with the overhead service. And once we get to their street on the underground, we're able to just convert them underground and not change the panel. So that's a big win for us as well.
Excellent.
Okay. I have a question about soil. And the news made a big deal about how the sites were extremely contaminated after they went through the process, of course, of taming the flames, but then causing other problems. What's happening, and where's the soil going?
Well, I can't speak to the area that we're using to collect that. I know we're in close communication with environmental, with Catherine Rubin, who I see making eye contact with me in the audience. We're following all the normal protocols as the Bureau or the Army Corps of Engineer does debris removal. So we'll make sure that the site is safe before we go out there and start to restore electrical power to these to the community. Catherine, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss on environmental? Okay. But we can get you more information and bring it back at a later board date.
Yes. Because I know just given what also is happening in the county, I mean, there's a lot of conversation about who's going to have the unfortunate, what community or landfills can have the unfortunate luck of getting all this soil, and how are we going to deal with it? So it's going to be a lot, you know.
Anything else?
Yeah, just want to wish everybody a happy Women History Month. This is the month that we celebrate all the important women in our lives and on the incredible accomplishments they've had through history here in the department. It dates back 100 years. We employ nearly 2,900 women out of 11,000, and we're continuously working on bringing more representation into our organization. And representation matters, right? And so one of the things that I've been working diligently is getting more representation on our executive team to have highly qualified men and women that have industry experience, so that our organization sees the importance of having diversity and representation in the higher levels of the organization. We also have a lot of events that we sponsor that create a lot of awareness of that, including the Science Bowl, which you and I participated in. Commissioner KATZ participated on Saturday this last weekend. Our student engineer and student summer youth programs and Adopt a School program, which allows our communities to be part of us as they come in through their ranks and school years. So I highly encourage you to think about the women in your life that made an impact on your careers and life in general. And lastly, if we can cue the video for the tap-off competition.
By the way, just to add to your comments about the Science Bowl on Saturday, a very impressive group of young people.
Yes.
I went into one of the classrooms and didn't understand the questions they were asking.
Love the answers.
Not even get to the answers. You know, there was like no chance of that happening. But the young people were very, very impressive and make you feel good about the future.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about it and pass it to Commissioner KATZ, because I think we were trying to tally how many we can answer collectively, and we got to 2. And after trying really hard, right? So,
Yeah, I would add to that. I think, this has been a difficult time in science, and it was really inspiring to see these kids, their passion for it, and amazing, skill and the dedication that it took for them to get there. For me personally, it was wonderful to participate, and I got to be extra proud as a North Hollywood High School alum and share that with the students since North Hollywood did win this year. So that was really great. But it was a very heartwarming and inspiring day to see that the future is in good hands. So yeah, thank you very much.
And the gentleman who was retiring from DWP?
Walter Cecil.
Yeah, Walter Cecil.
Who's been the sponsor of this, or the main advocate for 30-some-odd years, I believe.
He brought it to DWP 33 years ago, and he retired out of the department after 47 years of service. So, and he was there on Saturday, too.
Yeah, and his care was so evident. He actually remembered a friend of mine that I grew up with who was part of a winning team in the 90s, and he still remembered the team and asked about her, and just, it was amazing how much passion and dedication he clearly has put into both his 47 years of service at the department and working with these high schoolers as they begin their science careers. And hopefully some of them may join us in our family here at DWP in the future as they train to be engineers and scientists. So yeah, it was really an honor to meet him and see what this program has created.
Yeah. And I want to thank the volunteers from DWP that put this event every year, and they stay the whole day supporting the kids and the coaches and the parents on this program. So it's really good to see. All right, top of video.
We're here today celebrating the 13th annual tap-off, an event that all our water professionals come in to demonstrate the skills needed to keep a clean, reliable, safe water system.
Here, depending on the discipline, we're looking at certain factors. For example, when we're doing the pipe tapping, we're looking for possible leaks, kinks in the pipe, any safety violations. Of course, any of these disciplines, we roll safety into it and make sure no one's getting hurt in doing so. So we're really looking for precision, but we're also looking for good timing between the team members. They're working in unison, different aspects of the completion. So we're really looking at they're doing it fast, they're doing it safe, and they're doing it properly, not cutting any corners or missing anything. And we use several apparatuses to do so, from little steel balls to make sure that the pipe isn't kinked, to leveling systems to make sure the pipe is centered off center. We, again, for all the disciplines, which are pipe tapping, fire hydrant, hysteria, meter challenge, hot flare, and new this year is the top ops.
The Board of Commissioners thinks this event is really important because it gives us a chance to showcase the incredible skill that is often behind the scenes. So a lot of Angelenos don't realize what it takes to actually maintain our infrastructure and to get that clean water coming out of our tap. And our teams are just so impressive. It's amazing to see them in action today. And I'm just really proud of our LADWP employees. And I want to wish everybody participating good luck and may the best team win.
Now, that's my kind of video. I mean, it's authentic. It shows you, I don't think they work necessarily that fast all the time, but it just shows you the spirit.
Excuse me?
The agility. I mean, I was trying to look at those guys getting down on their knees. If I ever had to go out there and got down on my knees, it would take a crane to get me up. But that was just quite impressive. And I know they bring that hard. And that's authentic, what we were just showing. That's authentic. These men have to do this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your having enjoyed it so much. And of course, for you, the CEO, having enjoyed it so much. I didn't know about it, else I might have been there myself.
So it was on February 27 at Silmar. We announced that on the last board meeting.
I missed it.
And we had many teams compete from different water agencies, and we took all the top spots this year. The team that, the LADWP Tap Kings, the LA Tappers, the Hydro Kings, the Hydromaniacs, and then the individual competitors, Scott Wall and Christopher Torres. Now they're going to move to the regionals in Anaheim, and that's going to be in April 7 to the 10th. And then from there, if they win, which I know they're going to win, they're going to go to the nationals in Denver, Colorado. And it was a fabulous event. The level of team involvement, the morale, all the vendors that were there. It was a large event with a lot of participation. There was a women's team from another utility. It was incredible, and it was my first time going, and I'm happy to go every year because it's fun. And this emulates what the Line Series has on their Line Rodeo, and that Line Rodeo is coming at the end of the month too, here in our Truesdale facility. So more to come from our trades. It's a great time to be.
If you haven't been to the Lineman's Rodeo, it's worth spending a part of a Saturday morning at. It's truly amazing what people do to get power to people's homes.
Definitely.
So I got the date wrong. When is it?
It's the end of May. Mr. Brian Wilbur, do we have the exact dates for the Lyman's Rodeo?
APPA Rodeo.
The end of May. Very good. Thank you, Brian.
Well, the one at the end of the month is APPA Rodeo.
That's right.
Okay, that's why I was confused. Okay,
In
got it.
mid-California, that's correct.
Yes.
Great. Well, definitely, since it is annual, Wilma, you can join, or Commissioner Pinder, you can join next year. It definitely was worthwhile, and the Lineman's Rodeo as well. It's just amazing to see these teams at work, and also just want to shout out to all the LADWP staff who were out there tabling as well. There was some really great safety demonstrations, the peer program, a lot of amazing programs to support DWP employees and ensure that they are, performing their best and supported in their work. So that was really wonderful to see as well. So thank you.
That's all I have.
That's it?
That's it.
That's all right. Thank you, Janice. Dr. Pickle. And by the way, you may notice Dr. Pickle obviously is still with us. The longest pending retirement in DWP history, but we are very appreciative, Fred, for your hanging in there, and I believe for another month or so, but thank you.
Yeah, and I'm a city employee, so it has to be a city record, but I don't think it would qualify there. It's now extended to April 19th.
Okay. Thank you.
But to today's items, in short, I have no objections, but one comment on all the N items.
Okay.
And that is on the water and power budgets. If you look past the current year, the rate increases are up and down. My question is, for the final budget, is there some way to smooth that a little bit so that the rate increases are not up and down going out in the future years?
Okay. And when Ann gets up here, we'll ask her. You want to wait till you do presentation on the budget, Ann, or do you want, yeah, okay. We'll do it, but we'll ask that question. So thank you.
And on the deferred security matter, DWP's security has been less than at the level I've seen at other utilities. So you understand perspective on this.
I appreciate that.
Including executive security. I saw higher levels of executive security in the 70s, but then again, it was during the oil embargo and everybody's electricity rates were going up because oil prices were going up. So there was a similar level of public concern and in some personal cases, mania related to those increases.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your perspective. All right, moving right along. Let's see, after Dr. Pickle. We're on item G. Recommended items.
I'm sorry. Are we having N 2, 3, and 4 pulled?
3 for me, please. Not pulled, but just called special.
Okay. So it would be N4 through N9.
Motion to pass items N4 through N9.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? Without objection, all members present as aye votes on those items. Such shall be that they pass. Such shall be the order. Thank you for that. Management reports.
Good morning, Commissioners. We did want to present the preliminary fiscal year 25-26 budget. And I have Mary Ann Ann's, our Director of the Budget Office, and Sunny Viets, her Assistant Director, who is going to start our presentation. And as we go through, we have some comments from Water, Power, and Joint as well.
And I would ask that before we conclude to answer Dr. Pickle's question, please.
The short answer to Dr. Pickle's question depends on how much borrowing we want to do. Right now, for power, we have about a $2 billion capital program, and we plan to borrow approximately $1 billion. If we want to reduce the rate for the current year, we borrow more. But we are looking at, that's the offset, or we cut back some of the programs that we want to do. So those are our levers that we can do as far as reducing the rate impact.
I think, Fred, your point was that the volatility costs us? Is that?
Yeah, it costs us money. I'm an engineering economist, so I'll do the on the one hand, but on the other. We are concerned about the levels of debt, but there are some, what smoothing can we do in next year and the year following year? Because there were looking at the financial plans, there were some significant ups and downs going out about 4 years.
we could smooth the projects. So depending on when the completion time was estimated, we can try to smooth those out, the cash flows on those projects, or we can levelize borrowing to reduce that as well.
Why don't we, this is going to come back to us.
Yes.
This is the first step, but let's keep that question active, and as you talk to commissioners and we sit down and discuss this, take a look at, you know, what the various options are and what their impact is. Because I understand where Fred's coming from, and if we can level it out, it would be great. You know, the project's deadlines are what they are at this point. A number of those projects haven't been started yet, so we'll see what the deadlines are going to be, but what we can work with to even it out and go from there. So one other thing, and if you would at some point, I'll let your folks make the presentation, but if you could make a comment on, I don't know how, you know, how good your crystal ball is working these days, or the Ouija board, one or the other, but what the impact of all these, the tariff war with Canada, who has always been a problem for us, so hostile to the United States. Anyhow, what a person, what a place to pick a fight with. But anyhow, but the impact, particularly on building materials, lumber in particular, which could impact on the Palisades, obviously, and just the tariffs in general. What we anticipate, or you know, what we think that may do to this budget as we go through it.
The department does have a robust materials inventory, so we do have materials on hand that we've already purchased, and we'll use those first. But as we replenish those, we should see higher prices on our price per unit for those materials if we're buying them from Canada or other areas that it's going to cause it to go up. But we do have, you know, materials on hand. We do have transformers, cable, all of the things that we need on our day-to-day operations. We keep approximately 12 months supply, but as we use those up and we have to buy more, we should expect price increases.
All right, and Dave, when we underground cable, like in the Palisades, we underground substations too and everything else?
So we are not planning on building, at this time, we're not planning on building any new substations, but if we did build that 104, that was the idea, to go underground with the substation too, just so it's out of sight, out of mind. Right. We do have some additional plans to perhaps expand one of the existing stations on Sunset, and we're still looking at the feasibility of that expansion going underground as well.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Sorry about that, guys.
Good morning. Good morning, Board President KATZ and Commissioners. So let's get started. So our 25-26 budget does support both water and power infrastructure investments, compliance with regulatory mandates, and enhancements to improve customer engagement and satisfaction, and the active management and strengthening of our safety culture. We continue to emphasize cost control to maintain our financial metrics and preserve our low cost of borrowing. And lastly, this budget provides for expanding recruitment and planning for the related space needs as well. So this table depicts the budget estimates and actual expenditures based on a senior AGM contributing organizational perspective, which essentially identifies the cost under each senior manager's direct control. And this is the different view would be the functional view of the budget, and that's included in the appendix for your informational purposes. So here we have the current year, 24-25, the re-estimate of $8.8 billion, and that is forecasted to come under the approved budget by roughly 4%, or $350 million, and mainly due to underruns and contract spending across all three of the systems. However, this level of projected spending for the current year does reflect a 10% growth, or $780 million increase compared to the $8 billion actual spending in 23-24. And that is mainly driven by contract spending that we achieved, as well as fuel and purchase power expenditures. Moving on to the 25-26 preliminary budget proposal, it is estimated at $9.9 billion, which is about 13% higher, or $1.1 billion higher than the current year forecast. And that is mainly attributed to expected spending in the contracts that we're underrunning in the current year being pushed out to the next year, as well as labor and bond redemption and interest expenditures. Now, some of the key highlights for the joint you see there broken down by each of the senior managers. The CFO, you see a slight reduction of about $7 million, 0.4%. That is mainly from changes in the funding projections of the retirement benefits. The CEO and other direct reports, roughly 20.6% higher than where we're projected to come in at the end of the year, about $200 million. And that is mainly from energy management, projected spending of $34 million, IT contract spending of about $66 million, HR's healthcare costs coming in at $43 million, and that will actually get adjusted for the final budget, as well as contract spending of $7 million. The customer service communications corporate strategy, they're forecasted about 35% or $143 million above the current year, and mainly from proposed spending in distributed energy solutions, about $90 million in contract spending, rebates, and construction cost, as well as customer services, about $48 million in spending expected in contracts and labor. And lastly, the CAO's office, about 13%, you see that under, or $76 million under the current year, and that's mainly from fleet's lower estimated projection of fleet purchases for the next upcoming year. As you can see from this chart, there is planned growth over 3,000 positions as reflected in the department's proposed preliminary annual personnel resolution, the APR, of 14,801 positions compared to the December occupancy of 11,760 occupied employees. With having achieved over 9% growth over the last several years, we've increased over 1,000 positions. The department will continue its efforts in hiring and continue to plan for expanding recruitment and related space needs. Working with the city personnel, the department has allocated resources to assist in the completion of classification creation and assessment development, and hopefully this effort will ultimately expand our pipeline of incoming talent. The proposed APR increase is 765 new budgeted positions, 515 for power, mainly in the power system reliability program, distribution, transmission and generation, construction and engineering. We have water systems request of 50 positions. Those are for technical and professional positions in the as-needed notice of compliance and letter of agreements with IBW for water-related projects. And lastly, we have 200 positions earmarked for the joint organizations for various operational needs. And you can see there, those are budgeted in the labor planning organization, and those will be allocated to the divisions in the joint system to meet supporting operational needs at the CAO's discretion. Now, in order to mitigate the financial impact on our revenue requirement and ultimately our customer rates, the divisions apply a vacancy factor to only fund a certain percentage of each position in their respective labor budgets, as they will not be able to hire all these positions come July 1st. And the cumulative result of this funding method results in what you see there in the column of the 12,803 equivalent funded positions. The preliminary 25-26 total compensation budget is proposed at $3.1 billion, with regular labor at $1.9 billion, overtime roughly $400 million, and benefits at $850 million. This does represent an increase of about 5.5% compared to, or $163 million compared to last year's approved budget, of which approximately $88 million is attributed to the addition of the 765 new budgeted positions for the upcoming year. Included in the $3.1 billion total compensation budget is $66 million for hiring exempt positions. This is based on power system and CAO's estimates for their exempt labor budget, and you can see that breakdown in the table on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side table, you see as of January 30th, the department has hired over 600 positions, or employees, I should say, in these exempt classification. And this does supplement the department's hiring capacity above the APR levels to meet the various operational needs. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sunny to walk you through each of the system's budget and main drivers.
One question, if
Yes.
I could, please. By increasing the hiring, will that be limiting our contracting out?
Not necessarily. I think there's projected contract increased spending for next year across the board. I think it's both hand in hand.
Our work is increasing.
The need is increasing. Do we track any sort of like percent contract versus percent internal? I think that's more what President KATZ is kind of getting at, how much of the total labor and
Can
work
I
of
jump
the
in here real
department
quick?
is.
Let's talk about core agreements, for example. Whenever we go through our NOC process for contracting out, part of the negotiation would for us to agree to provide additional training or perhaps additional staffing positions that we agree to over the life of the contract. So we've entered into several core agreements that we have with IBEW Local 18, and that drives a lot of the APR growth that you see. We've contracted something out a few years ago. We agreed to do additional hiring and staffing, and a lot of those positions are produced from one of our 5.30 training programs, which could take up to 2 to 4 years to produce. So you may still see vacancies, you'll still see contracts going out, but we have complied with the core agreement, and these people are in the pipeline getting ready to graduate. So the intent would be once they graduate and can perform the work, we would like to contract less. But like Janice said, the work continues to grow, so we'll continue to engage with our labor partners through the NOC process and update our core agreements.
How long does it take someone to, quote, graduate out? What's the period there?
It depends on what program, anywhere from 2 to 4 years. We'll just talk about electrical mechanic because that's what I am. That program is 48 months.
You're still going through the program?
I'm still going through the program. It's a 25-year program. So we hire entry-level candidates into the electrical mechanic training program, and they're at the Truesdale Training Center. They do classroom instruction and field rotation. They're required to perform job performance measures and get their books signed off in the field once they've completed these tasks satisfactorily. They have a full-time training assistant that's assigned to each class that kind of helps monitor and track their process. As they move through classroom rotations and field rotations, and then they complete the 48 months, then they graduate, and then they'll go to one of our, like our substation folks or the generation on the operations side. Even the water system has electrical mechanics. And then they complete their probation. So it's a 48-month training program with 6 months probation, so roughly 54 months. So for us to be able to hire that class could take up to an additional year on the front end of it. That's why it's so important to have these strategic long-term glimpses of what our budget and what our work picture is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
You might want to talk about the backlog of hiring for power systems, right? Because this is the first year we've actually funded APR to the requirement of hiring for power system.
Yes, so we have, when you pull the numbers out of the system to see what our vacancy factor actually is, it looks like we have nearly 2,000 vacancies. A lot of those vacancies are occupied by somebody in what we call a substitute position, which are actually working their way through the training program. Mm-hmm. So we're still paying for COVID in how we kept up our hiring. So there's almost 13 months of not hiring any new electrical mechanics into that training program, and we watched that 13-month window work its way slowly through the program. And this last year, we've endured that 13 months. So only this month are we going to finally get a new graduating class of electrical mechanics for the first time in over a year. So it's important as we look at what takes so long to hire these classes. If we let our foot off that accelerator at all, we're paying for that lack of foresight 4 to 5 years down the road. We've had a lot of lists that haven't been given in the periodicity that they have been in the past, mostly due to COVID, and we're just starting to see that change now to where we're going to get these promotional lists in place in a timely manner so that we can promote. It just causes a bottleneck on that side of it.
Thanks, Dave. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, thank you, Marianne, and good morning, Board President and Commissioners. In this slide, we will provide an overview of Power Systems' total budget contributions by cost element, focusing on the current year 24-25 re-estimate and the program year 25-26 proposed budgets, shown in yellow highlight. For Power Systems' total current year re-estimated budget, it is $3,892.7 million, which reflects a net underspending of $70 million, or 2% compared to the current year approved budget, which is attributed to contract underspending and deferments of $211 million, with offsetting increases of $40 million in fuel and purchase power, $50 million in labor due to overtime, and $47 million in materials and supplies. For program year 25-26, the budget is proposed at $4,411.8 million, reflecting planned growth of $519 million, or 13%, over the current year re-estimated budget. And as you can see, the main drivers of the increase are $72 million increase in labor, regular and overtime, $289 million, or 39%, in contracts, $52 million in materials and supplies, and $36 million increase in other directs, incentives, and fees. And I will cover the drivers of those increases in the next slide. The major drivers of the proposed $289 million increase in contracts for fiscal year 25-26 include $165 million for renewable portfolio standard transmission projects for the McCullough-Victorville transmission lines 1 and 2 retrofit and series compensation, $36 million increase for distribution projects under the Power System Reliability Program for the replacement of deteriorated poles and replacement of the West LA District Facility, $30 million increase for information application system support for PSRP related to research, development, and analytics and the distribution automation project, and $11.6 million under RPS generation related to the demolition of old units at the Valley Generating Station. For materials and supplies, the $52 million increase relates to city-driven overhead to underground conversion projects in the LA Art District area and electric transportation program capital work. And the $36 million increase in other directs, incentives, and fees is related to customer incentives for the electric transportation program. Next slide. Here we have an overview of the Power Systems fuel and purchase power budget. The proposed program year 25-26 budget is $1,682 million, which is a $43 million increase over the current year reestimate, and that includes $801 million in renewables, shown in the green bar, which is an increase of $82 million over the current year reestimate, and that is largely driven by the ELAM 1 and 2 solar projects, which recently came online and are expected to reach full capacity by mid-2025, as well as a new geothermal project expected to begin operation in the first quarter 2026, and the 25-year extension of the Heber geothermal purchase power agreement. Natural gas, shown in the gold column, is projected at $627 million, which is an increase of $267 million over the current year reestimate. And you can see there is a corresponding decrease of $300 million in coal and nuclear, shown in the black column, and that is related to the transition from coal to natural gas at the Intermountain Power Plant. And the last component is other non-renewables of $190 million, which reflects a slight decrease of $6 million compared to the current year reestimate. And this proposed budget for the current year 24-25 and program year 25-26 supports renewable portfolio standard targets of 47.3% and 52.1% respectively, based on Power Systems' near-term projections. Next slide. In this slide provides an overview of the various programs that benefit our customers, such as the Energy Efficiency Program, which has a proposed budget of $180 million for 25-26 and includes $121 million for various energy efficiency programs, $24 million for commercial direct install program, $15 million for the Home Energy Improvement Program, otherwise known as HYPE, $14 million for LEUSD energy efficiency measures, and $6 million for lighting upgrade projects. The electric transportation program is proposed at $187 million for program year 25-26, and that includes $148 million for operation and maintenance of the various LCFS and GHG funded programs, including customer incentives, and $39 million for capital infrastructure investments. The Power Incentive Program is proposed at $73 million for 25-26, and that includes $30 million for the Demand Response Program, $22 million for the Feed-in Tariff Carport and Canopy Solar Program, and $21 million for the Self-Generation Incentive Program reflected in 25-26. We also have $38 million proposed for water conservation programs and $4 million proposed for the emission reduction grant program. Okay. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Dave Hansen to discuss Power Systems strategic investments.
Thank you. So we have prepared a few slides just to give a brief overview of our prioritization and kind of what drives our budget. So looking ahead into our generation side and PSRP side, we're looking at overhauling the Castaic units, which is driving about $10 million of our budget. And this is not a delta. The numbers that you hear that you're looking at are either O&M or capital as they add to the budget. It's not just the difference from last year. That had to be explained to me this morning. Anyway, so as we look at the generation transformer replacement program too, that's right around $9 million. O&M costs, this is our entire operation and maintenance costs for our generation stations. You can see our steam plants are coming in right around $200 million. Hydro, 120, and then our high voltage substations at $14 million. That's Castaic spoils pile as they continue to dredge out that retaining reservoir there on the outlet of the pumps. We have to remove that sediment, and it is a spoils pile out there at Castaic, so that thing has continued to build to the point to where it is critical that we relocate it. So that's why that's something that's been in the budget for a few years that we've kind of kicked down the road, but now's the time we have to make sure that happens. We're also rebuilding some of the units at Haynes, and then security upgrades to 2 of our switching stations, primarily out of town. I believe that's McCullough and Marketplace. Next slide, please. So recently, the board approved the McCullough-Victorville capital project. This is to upgrade the line that's coming from Boulder City to Victorville. There, you can see there's nearly 2,000 towers that needed to be gone through. These lines were converted to 500 kV in 1970 and 1980. We do have a WEC mandate to upgrade the towers themselves. There's also some clearance issues. Over time, the codes change, and we have to be able to modernize. If we go back and touch any of this equipment, then we have to bring it up to current standards. It's also reconductoring of these lines, which is going to bring us the capacity of an additional nearly 500 megawatts of renewable energy in from the desert. As you can see there, the project scope, we're talking about hardware, steel tower, foundations, and some of the conductors. Next slide, please. So also part of our wildfire hardening, and this is our fix-it tickets. You might have heard us call them IMAX whenever we presented here to the board. So this is for almost $500 million in capital, $275 in O&M. So this has to do with wildfire hardening. We do have our different fix-it tickets that come in from our inspection and maintenance crew, and there you can see in the table on the right, it kind of gives you an idea of how long we have to make these corrections. So anything that's come in as a level 1 IMAC, which is an inspection maintenance accelerated code, it's a WIMIS term for the computer system that we use to track it. So anything that comes in as a level 1 has to be remedied right away in 24 hours. So we would send out our electric trouble crews to remedy this. And once they remedy the immediate threat, then it can be reclassified to perhaps a 2A or a 2B or a 2C. And then that gives us a little more time to send our traditional construction crews out there and perhaps replace the pole in its entirety. So as we're continuing to take a look at our wildfire mitigation plan, I think we're going to see a lot of things in our plan that we didn't necessarily have before. As CAL FIRE and some of the regional, more local fire departments start to take a look at the fire maps and reclassify what used to be a Tier 2 may now be a Tier 3. For example, Palisades was a Tier 2 lower fire risk. So I'm imagining that will be reclassified. So we'll have a lot more areas to cover for our maintenance and replacement programs. We do have a very aggressive vegetation management program. So we have about 185,000 trees that get trimmed per year. We have a database of 360,000 trees. that our vegetation crews, they monitor the growth cycles and they know when they need to go out and visit these trees again. Again, just as a reminder, we only trim trees that are coming potentially in contact with our power lines. We would never remove a tree unless the customer requested us to do so in normal conditions.
Thank you. Now we have an overview of water systems budget by cost element. Water systems total current year re-estimated budget is $1,020.6 million, reflecting a net underspending of $85 million or 8% compared to the current year approved budget, which is attributed to contract underspending and deferments of $110 million, offset by an increase of $12 million in labor due to overtime, and an increase of $19 million in materials and supplies. The program year 25-26 budget is proposed at $1,399 million, which is an increase of $378 million or 37% over the current year re-estimated budget. And as you can see, the main drivers of the increases are $304 million increase in contracts, $26 million in labor, regular, and overtime, and $42.7 million in purchased water, which we will discuss the drivers of both of contracts and purchased water in the next slide. The major driver of the $304 million increase in contracts includes $85 million for recycled water, stormwater capture projects at the David M. Gonzalez Recreation Center, Valley Plaza Park North and South, Fernangeles Park, and Strathern Park. $94 million is related to increased spending in water quality capital for the groundwater replenishment project and the Fairmont sedimentation plant. And we also have an increase of $89 million for infrastructure capital work related to trunk line and major system connection projects and seismic improvements at the North Haywee Dam. Next slide. This slide shows the trend of purchased water over the last 10 years from fiscal years 15-16 to 24-25. The actuals are identified in blue, in the blue line, and the approved budget is in red. Then we have the current year 24-25 re-estimate and program year 25-26 estimate in green. And as you can see, the purchased water has been trending down over the last several years, which is due to experienced wet conditions, resulting in higher LA aqueduct flows and less purchased water. For current year 24-25, the re-estimate is $203 million, which is $12 million lower than the approved budget of $250 million due to the anticipation of runoff from the prior wet year 23-24. The proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget is $246 million, which is $43 million or 21% increase over the current year re-estimate. And the program year estimate assumes average hydrologic conditions and does not include any anticipated residual supplies from the 23-24 wet year. So there is a projected increase in the need for purchased water to meet demands.
When does the Headwaters project come online?
I'm sorry? The Headwaters.
Are you talking about Headworks?
Headworks, I'm sorry.
Well, the two reservoirs are operational. What we're working on now is on some of the appurtenances in the area. There is a flow control station that we need to build, and then there's the work that's going to be done to finish the property off. But the actual reservoirs, Headworks West and East, both of them are in service.
They are in service.
Yeah,
Okay.
110 million gallons of storage total.
Are they full?
Sorry?
How full are they?
They should be full. Total capacity is 110 million gallons between both.
Now, I'm just curious because I know we've been increasing storage and doing a lot of work in that area, and you guys have been doing a lot of forward thinking. So I'm wondering when we're going to start seeing that reflected in the trend line.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that the Headworks projects were done as a result of us taking Ivanhoe and Silver Lake reservoirs offline. The combined capacity of those two was around 800 million gallons. So when they were replaced with the Headworks reservoirs, it was for the effective storage, the portion that's actually normally used. And that's how we came up with 110 million gallons of storage. So it's replacing storage that we lost in the system by putting it at Headworks now.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
And actually, I will be handing it off to Anselmo to continue to discuss water system strategic
Oh, I thought you were
investment.
covering these too. She's on the roll, so. So commissioners, here's just to give you a snapshot of some of the programs and projects that we're working on for the upcoming fiscal year. Starting out with water infrastructure, as you know, we have over 7,400 miles of pipe in our system. Our goal is to replace around 240,000 feet of water main per year. That's to give us the proper replacement cycle for our water pipes, which we assume that have like a 100-year life cycle. All that work is done by our water distribution division, by the way. The North Hayward Dam is a project that's taking place up in the Owens Valley. And the purpose there is to replace the existing dam that has seismic concerns. This project has been going on since 2021. We expect to be done with it by 2026. And the idea is that by installing the new dam, we'll be able to remove the existing dam that has seismic concerns with it. On the water supply side, we have a couple of projects that we're working on that are significant. The stormwater capture, I think the main program there is going to be the stormwater capture parks projects that was mentioned earlier. This is where we're working with the Bureau of Engineering on developing these underground storage facilities to be able to capture the stormwater. It's going to be going into this underground infiltration basins and then recharging the groundwater. We have 7 projects. BOE is going to be overseeing the construction, and those projects should be starting pretty soon. The Harbor Refineries project is another water supply. The significance of these is that refineries use a lot of water and they need high quality water to be able to perform. And providing them with advanced treated recycled water removes the need for drinking water for processes. So we've been working really diligently and closely with LEHRER in using the water that's being produced at the Terminal Island plant to produce the treated water that can be used for processing at the refineries and offset the need for drinking water. If you go to the next slide, continuing here, these are all water quality related projects. I think you've heard of all of them already. The first one on the top left is the Fairmount Sedimentation Plant. That is a project that we issued a notice to proceed late last year, and that's a progressive design build project where we're building a sedimentation plant to improve the quality of the water that's going to be going into the LA Aqueduct filtration plant. This will ensure that the aqueduct filtration plant will be more efficient because we'll be removing some of the contaminants prior to getting to the filter plant itself. And that right now is around 30% complete in design. Like it's a design build, and right now it's around 30% complete in design. On the upper right corner is the groundwater replenishment project. This is the project that we're doing in partnership with LEHRER. This is going to produce around 25 million gallons of advanced treated recycled water per day that we're going to use to recharge the San Fernando Basin. So construction started on that in December, and we should be completed by 2027. And that's right now one of the largest recycled water projects anywhere. So it's quite an exciting project for us. Going down to the lower left, the Hyperion membrane bioreactor, that is a pilot project. That is to prove the concept of using membrane bioreactor, or MBR, as a technology to be able to improve the effluent from the Hyperion plant. This is going to provide around 1 million gallons of water per day. The plant is actually 100% complete. We're expecting that we are going to go online later on this year. So once again, this is actually at the Hyperion plant. It's a joint partnership with LEHRER and also with Metropolitan Water District. And then the last one there is the Hyperion Advanced Water Purification Facility. This facility will provide 1.5 million gallons of water. Some of that water will go to the airport, to LAX, and they'll be able to use that water there. That facility is also complete, but we expect it to be operational later on this year as well. And I think that's the end of the examples. But this is just to give you an idea of the type of projects that we're going to be working on for the next fiscal year.
Thank you. Next, we'll go over joint systems, total budget by contributing organization and cost element. Joint systems total current year reestimated budget is $3,877.5 million, which reflects a net underspending of $196 million or 5% compared to the current year approved budget, which is also mainly attributed to contract underspending and deferments, as well as bond redemption and interest underspending of $51 million. The program year 25-26 budget is proposed at $4.2 billion, which is an increase of $261 million over the current year reestimated budget. And as you can see, the major drivers are the variances are increase of $90 million in bond redemption and interest, increase of $47 million in labor regular and overtime, increase of $242 million in contracts, which we will go through in detail in the next slide, an offsetting decrease of $109 million in retirement and death benefits. There was also a decrease of $76 million in materials, which is the net effect of reduced estimates for fleet purchases and added estimates for the new Emergency Control Center. Increase of $41 million in healthcare, and that estimate will be updated with the latest projections for the final budget. And an increase of $37 million in other directs, incentives, and fees, which we will also go over in the next slide. The major drivers of the $242 million increase in contracts include $26.6 million for the ERP program management support, $23 million for energy efficiency programs, which was part of the customer benefits slide discussed earlier, $12.5 million for CIS upgrades and enhancements, $11 million for cloud infrastructure related to customer contact centers, and $11 million for distributed energy resources incentive programs, including the demand response and the new plug-into power program. The major drivers of the $37.3 million in other directs, incentives, and fees includes $27.3 million for distributed energy resource O&M related to the new self-generation incentive program and the demand response program. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Norma Grubb to discuss the strategic investments for Information Technology Services Division. Sure.
Good morning, Commissioners. A pleasure to be here. Is the microphone on?
I think it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. A pleasure to be here. IT's strategic initiative for 2025-2026 revolve around creating an IT infrastructure that enables fast and intelligent decision-making by all teams across the department. This includes AI capabilities with data and cloud at the foundations of successful use cases. Particularly after recent events, we all agree on the need to expedite processes, mitigate risks, and make accurate decisions faster. Information technology is a strong dependency on all these critical goals. We need state-of-the-art applications that are intuitive and easy to use so decision makers can get information and act faster, with architectures that interconnect data as a source of truth seamlessly and in real time for everyone in the department to solve problems timely and based on evidence instead of intuition. We also need prediction capabilities for wildfire and other catastrophic events that need proactive planning. Advanced technologies are the essential foundation to move the department forward in this future state. In parallel to that, technology enablement goes hand in hand with cyber protection. The three main initiatives, we have three main initiatives and a cyber component that you see in this slide for this budget request are aligned with all these critical, supporting all these critical goals. First of all, the ERP, integrate HR, payroll, and finance applications into a single source management system, which is Workday, to improve employee experience and drive flawless business and financial operations. We know that silo applications like the ones we currently have are prone to error and generate waste since data is entered multiple times in different places, which also creates inconsistency in data quality, which at times lead to poor decision-making. Regarding the second one, the Customer Cloud Service project, we deliver real-time data from advanced metering infrastructure to support two dependent initiatives. First of all, asset management and operations optimization, Real-time data from meters allows to detect anomalies in asset and operations functioning to plan proactive actions. And two, improving customer experience by giving our customers real-time data on their own energy consumption, so they are empowered by knowing how to create efficiencies in their own homes. Finally, migrating electric and water geospatial data to ArcGIS GIS will contribute to support the creation of visual tools such as the Do Not Drink Water dashboard, recently showcased to this board and mentioned today during the first part of the meeting. It will also put in our Palisades crews' fingertips the essential tools they need to move faster and more accurately in their reconstruction efforts. Finally, cyber programs are focused on protecting our customer data and the department assets through the creation of an integrated security operations center that will enhance resiliency. Employee training programs are also required leading up to the 2026 FIFA World Cup and 2028 Summer Olympics, where phishing and other social engineering-based attacks are expected to increase.
Norma, can we expect a separate presentation on the ISOC at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
Take that action item.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next slide is customer services. Joe?
Yes, good morning. The Customer Service Division has a $181 million O&M budget and a $57.4 million on the capital side, which I want to focus on in our strategic capital investments, which is the slide before you this morning. These are three key areas for us in the coming year. The first box is our customer relationship management system, our data analytics warehouse, and the My Account portion of the corporate website, which will be upgraded and replaced. This is the backbone of the My Account portion of LADWP.com website, which includes web user preferences, enrollment in programs and rebates, signing up for automatic payment and paperless options, enrollment in community outage subscriptions, as well as self-service options. This is a key area that is seriously outdated for a city the size of Los Angeles and a utility of this size. It will make our customer experience significantly better when it is replaced. The second box focuses on replacing our existing call center platform. This is both to improve the customer experience as well as our employees' ability to help our customers. The phone system that's used by thousands of customers each day has self-service phone features like reporting an outage or in wanting to speak to one of our representatives, the phone tree, as well as that entire interface with the customer when they call us. It will also provide a single view for our customer service reps. Right now, they're accessing dozens of systems, in excess of 30, to answer different questions that our customers might call with. It's very cumbersome, and we can provide a much better service, more options for our customers, as well as hopefully also reduce the call handling time, which is pretty high right now. The last strategic investment we want to focus on is our facilities improvements at our customer service centers. These are really customer engagement centers, as you know, with our very successful customer service Saturdays, as well as providing a very convenient option for Angelinos to come in, pay their bills, sign up for service, ask questions, and get information. Portion of this involves major capital work in the coming year, including relocating our San Pedro Service Center, opening a new service center in Eagle Rock, and improvements at our Van Nuys location.
So this $8 million in capital improvements for customer service centers is in addition to the improvements we've already approved this year to buy new land, move some of those service centers, and rebuild them?
Yes.
Okay.
How many service centers do we have?
Oh, that's a great 15, I believe, and I could be off by one or two. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Joe.
So the next slide presents the power systems financial plan summary. So when you look at the farthest column to the right, this is the preliminary budget. You can see we have assumed net sales of 21,063,000 gigawatt hours of energy, with a revenue requirement of $5,824,000,000. With that, we're also planning to spend, as Marianne had went through, all of our O&M costs of $2,004,000 in total O&M, fuel, purchase power, and emissions of $1,682,000,000. Depreciation, property taxes, and other of $969 million, for total operating expenses of $4,655,000,000. Other income and expenses, this includes our interest expense, our city transfer, contribution and aided constructions for an outflow of $346 million for a change in power systems net position of $823 million. What Dr. Pickle had mentioned, the 13%, that is the difference between our current estimated 23.8 cents per kilowatt hour to 27 cents. This budget is supported by borrowing $1,696 million with total capital of $2,656 million. We will go back and look at our estimates, see what we can smooth, and I think there's already a few things that we may know that we may be pushed out a little bit further out as well, but that's the change in the 13%.
Anything that was counting on federal funding?
Not on power system. Power system doesn't get much federal funds.
Overall budget.
But we are hoping some of our costs that we have incurred this year for Palisades, we will get FEMA reimbursement, which we haven't estimated yet into the budget.
Right. Understood.
And then moving on to the water system. For water system, our preliminary budget assumes sales of 183.7 million 100 cubic feet, which is our billing unit. Revenue requirement of $2,062 million. Total O&M costs, which covers operating support, infrastructure, water quality, water supply, and the Owens Valley costs of $775 million. Purchase water of $246 million. Depreciation, property taxes, and other costs of $310 million for a total operating expense budget of $1,331 million. Other income and expense includes our interest expense plus our contribution aided construction for an outflow of $82 million and a change in net position of $650 million. So for water system, this is supported by borrowing of $363 million for a total capital of $1,163 billion, and our system average rate is assumed to be $11.70, which is 8% over the $10.80 to date.
What did you say the borrowing total was?
$363 million. Next slide. These are our preliminary numbers. We're planning to send this to the CAO for their budget preparation packages, but we will go ahead and continue to work with the operating divisions and come back to the board in the month of May to submit a final budget. And we'll work with the Office of Public Accountability on smoothing and anything else we can do.
Great. Appreciate that. And if board members have questions, Anna and her staff are available between now and those various meetings if you want a deeper dive on anything or have questions. I'm going to volunteer Ann, but she's always very helpful and cooperative to reach out to Ann and she'll make it happen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I had the same question, sorry, I keep turning mine off. I had the same question that Richard did on how we build anticipated changes in costs for goods into our budget based on the current trade war crisis that's escalating. And if you build sort of a sliding scale contingency into the budget, or how are those estimated costs baked in, especially noting how much economic uncertainty we're seeing in sort of these macroeconomic headwinds?
At our labor budget, we look at our MOUs to see what's our floor and ceiling. We come up with an average. For our materials, we actually use the UCLA puts out a report on the estimated cost increase, and we take our current spending and we escalate it by that percentage. I think in prior years, it's been about 6%.
Oh, 5 or 6% on average.
But it should be coming out, and we will also look at that as well as what additional impacts.
So UCLA will likely update that based on the current situation, and then we'll get an advanced number between now and May when we submit.
Probably several.
Yeah, probably
That's
several.
the way it's going.
Yeah, typically we update it once, so we've already updated it, and I believe it is, we'll get the exact figure, but it is, I believe, published quarterly. We will take a look at it. Typically for our budget cycle, we update once a year, so these preliminary numbers do have those escalations included, yes.
My concern is that if the escalation changes so dramatically, doubling or tripling, that it may not behoove us to just do what we always do.
We can certainly take a look at it and see what has been, the data that's available.
That would be super helpful.
Yeah, because there was talk even this morning of doubling and tripling some of the tariffs just because, I don't know, somebody had a bad night's sleep. But, you know, so there's a lot of volatility and this can go all over the place. And unfortunately, that has significant ramifications for all of us and what we do, so.
And one other item is that about 50% of the power systems costs are recovered through pass-throughs, and about 60% of water systems are recovered through pass-throughs. To the extent we don't spend these and we defer them, we will reduce the rates either quarterly or annually as we bring to the board those rate factors.
Right, and that's some of the fluctuation that Dr. Pickle's talking about, or is that separate?
That's separate. That is what actually happens. What Dr. Pickle is looking at is our forecast for the future as well.
Understood.
And we also have levers to pull if the tariffs move the budget in a different way, so we can slow projects down or accelerate projects to hit the budget. So we'll be reviewing our budget every month.
Dr. Pickle.
One area that seems to be subject to a lot of volatility right now is the federal spending. Have we assessed how any of the capital projects might be impacted by the dropping of or loss of grant funds that were not already paid through? And the federal government seems to be disregarding commitments as not being commitments and turning off the spigot in some cases. Have we done any current assessment, or are we planning an assessment of what projects might be changed in terms of what we should be doing with them?
The main funding that we get is from the state on the water system, but I think those are more from propositions, Measure W, Measure 1. I think for the program year, we expect...
W is local.
Yeah.
County. Yeah.
So state loans and borrowing, state loans is $32 million for program year, $42 million for next year. I believe those ones will still continue, but we will continue to monitor. And those are a percent, you know, maybe a percentage of our overall.
Yeah, unless they're getting money they're passing through. That would be the only caveat on that.
I think, all signs point to state revolving funds that are pass-throughs from EPA staying consistent or maybe even increasing under this administration. But I do have some questions about our stormwater capture program, which I do know was reliant on a good deal of federal grant making under climate change funding, which, you know, is probably among the first of the programs to either be impounded or, yes, and if those funds do get impounded, you know, we'll need to reassess our support or lack thereof for that project at the board level and do a reassessment of the per acre foot cost of development and long-term production for that water source.
Okay. And at a minimum, adjust timelines.
Yeah, at a minimum adjust timelines, but I know that, you know, that was already kind of the cost per acre foot was already a hard pill to swallow for us, but, you know, knowing that we're trying to create additional sources of, you know, safe, clean water in basin to boost our resiliency, and knowing that we can't really compare an acre foot off the aqueduct in the future to an acre foot in basin because it's not apples to apples, knowing what climate change is doing to our water supply in the Eastern Sierra. So I think, you know, knowing just how our sort of collective opinion felt like it sort of squeaked by on the stormwater capture program in parks, if it is at all, I would say, impacted by a lack of federal funding or impoundment of federal funds, we'll need to reconsider the entire thing wholesale at the dais.
Maybe we should change the name, you know, find a more interesting name for climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that someone would buy.
Are there any federal funding impacts on the power side? Do we receive any DOE research funds or anything like that?
Very little, if any. When we did our last single audit, our federal funds audit, we had less than $750,000 for power.
Okay, yeah, that's
very small.
We had submitted several grant applications, so we weren't counting on them yet, but it was something that was part of our portfolio. And I have Kendall working on aligning all of the grant submittals and the status and what's at risk and what's not at risk so that we can brief on that.
Thank you.
My other question along those lines is, are we doing, for this budget and for our work planning for 25-26, are we doing an indirect analysis of federal impacts across our portfolio of projects? So for instance, we have projects with NREL. If federal funding for some of these projects for some of their projects massively change, it could impact our ability to deliver on program objectives. And they're not the only ones who subsist, primarily on federal funding. So I wonder if there's been an assessment at the joint level across our programs to understand how our partners in some of these projects may be impacted by federal funding changes.
Not yet, but it's something that we're looking into because we don't know what that is from a workforce perspective and funding for them versus funding from us. But it's something that we're keeping an eye on because I have the strategic group looking at the state and federal level for any changes that are going to be impactful to us and then start the conversations early.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
that's our budget, and thank you to the budget office, and there's many budget coordinators that work in water power joint that contribute to this, it's very much a team effort.
Great job.
Thank you very much for making the impossible understandable.
Yes.
God bless. So we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for the time. Thank you.
No, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, back to the agenda. George, you're up. George has two items that are special.
Yeah, I have two items that are special. Let's start with the easy one, and I don't need a presentation. I just have some questions for you, Ann, and maybe you'll say we want a presentation, but since wildfire is on everyone's mind and we're authorizing this excess liability insurance payment, I thought maybe you could talk us through what our sort of suite of wildfire coverage looks like, how we think about protecting the system financially from wildfire risk and mitigating that risk.
There is a presentation. I'm going to ask Larry Chapman, our Chief Risk Officer for Insurance, to come up and
Is your microphone on?
Good morning. Chief Risk Manager. I haven't made officer level yet. Okay. Did you want me to go through the entire presentation, or are you just specifically wanting to know about coverage?
Specifically understanding the coverage and how it ties into our larger sort of understanding organization-wide about mitigating wildfire risk, especially financially. I'll let you be the judge of how much of the presentation that means.
Do we have that loaded?
it's been provided, yes.
I'm seeing.
This is item N3,
Okay.
Shante.
They're getting it.
Okay, great.
We're not asking you to predict how much we're going to get paid from the last wildfire. It's a little early for that, but.
What wildfire? Okay.
That's what the fire.
I know you asked specifically about wildfire, but with the way our program's set up, we actually have two separate towers within our coverage, one for non-wildfire and one for wildfire. Now, specifically as it relates to wildfire, we've been talking to the board in the last few years about, replacing some of the high-priced layers that we had in terms of commercial insurance. So we've taken on a higher posture in terms of self-insurance with the wildfire. So our initial coverage on that wildfire now is up to $100 million. And then we've built a tower on top of that wildfire that will provide an additional $105.5 million. Now, that's what it looks like today. We are currently in the process of doing the renewal on the excess liability. So we are looking to see if we need to increase that tower a little bit more and what other alternative risk options we can use to help do that. We have a thought also of whether to increase that to 125. There's a chance we may stay at 100 million because, as you know, the pricing is coming in a little bit different now.
I bet it is.
And we also have some
Different means higher, right?
Yeah. We also have some insurers who are actually comfortable at the level they're at, so we're trying to negotiate with them to see if we can get them to move up higher on the tower and provide a little bit better pricing to us, and we would then take on that additional 25 million if that be the case. So I'm going to see if I can go forward to see if we have
So could you clarify for me? I got a little lost. You said our current self-insurance level is at 100 million, but I was reading 125 on that slide.
Right. For this year, the policy that's in place right now,
24,
it's 100 million.
25. Okay.
We're coming to the board now because our renewal is on April 1st.
Right.
So we were projecting that we would increase that self-insurance to 125 million, and then take the commercial carrier that's now in that 100 to 125 layer and move them up higher on the tower and see if we could get better pricing from them.
For the same summary amount of coverage at 205 or?
At minimum 205.
Okay.
There's
so
also,
we'd be basically we decrease the proportion of the power of the tower that they cover from by $20 million.
That lower portion. They may decide to move that same amount higher up on the tower.
Okay.
And then at the same time, we're also looking at additional markets to see if there's others that may want to sit on top of the tower or sit elsewhere in between, and as well as seeing if there's still any appetite for giving multi-year quotes so that we don't have to always keep moving in and out with some of these carriers.
And this is a question for Janice, but I imagine that the total amount of coverage we carry on a wildfire liability like this is going to be subject to sort of our internal review of wildfire response in general, since, I mean, you know, staying at essentially the same insured ceiling for wildfire doesn't seem reasonable based on what we just experienced.
Well, one of the reasons it hasn't moved rapidly is because, as you know, we have not been responsible in our operations and equipment for wildfires.
You better knock wood up on that.
So in our history, 100 years now, there's actually only 2 that are on the books, and neither one of them has gone beyond that 100 million barrier. So the initial thought when we were putting a lot of this together is make sure that we at least have the ability that if we had multiple wildfires, 2 in 1 year, we'd have the ability to cover that. And we do have other additional resources that our financial services office provides through the Power Revenue Fund. They have a self-insured fund as well that if we did not have the ability to cover all of this with insurance, there is a fallback. Okay. But we generally like to allow them to use that to be able to get their loans.
Sure.
But to your questions, though, one of the things that we're waiting for is the CAL FIRE updated maps.
Of course.
And so the reason why our insurance is so low is because our percentage of lines on Tier 3 is lower compared to other utilities in the state.
Yep.
That might change with CAL FIREs, which will drive the cost of the insurance, and then also discuss what's going to be for AB 1254, if that's something that's going to be open to POUs in the future, and that's a different.
That's a whole different calculus.
Yes.
But CAL FIRE changing the maps on what's Tier 2 versus Tier 3 could throw us into a higher level of insurance need based on what our proposed
because our risk will
premeditated
increase.
risk would
Yeah.
be. Yeah. Okay.
And to that very point, if you remember, last year, you did provide to us an approval for a wildfire self-insurance trust fund.
I remember that.
It is our intention to fund that in addition to the things that we're doing, so that we will have that additional capacity, and then it also will alleviate any fears of our ability to handle the self-insurance amount as well.
To stay solvent, sure.
Woman, you had a question?
Yeah, except this is so preliminary. We all use the term wildfires all the time. What is the technical definition of what, when we're talking about it in our insurance, what is the parameters of that?
You don't even need to get technical with it. The insurance company keeps it as simple as if there is a fire that becomes a conflagration, they will look at it as a wildfire. So that means that it could go from being 1 building to 10 buildings, and it's, to them, that's a large fire that's now a wildfire. Most of the time, you're going to see these in areas where there's vegetation, of course. You're not going to find it in the urban area, which also contributes to being a benefit to us. But
it could be if you said it went from 1 building to another building.
It could be, and that's the way the insurance company looks at it. They have a very broad definition for wildfire.
They, meaning the insurance?
The industry, yes.
Well, that's what I wanted to know, because some of my cooking looks like a wildfire to me. So I just wanted to be sure, because it does seem to be kind of imprecise, you know.
Exactly, because, if they were to give such a precise definition of wildfire, it may change the coverage implications greatly. So they tend to keep a broad definition for it.
Well, does
so
that benefit us, their broad definition versus, so that's all I'm asking.
How can I? Nothing the insurance company does will benefit the insured. It's just a matter of understanding whether it's something that you'd like to pay for or not.
All right. Thank you.
If you're ever in doubt, it's going to benefit the insurance company.
And a lot of this, it's based on historical things that have happened where they make adjustments in their coverage based on what they've seen. Oh wow, we're starting to see a lot more fires. What if we changed our definition for wildfire? Would that cause less risk or more risk exposure for us? And then they kind of determine where that fine line is and put that out in the policy. And it's a matter of accepting it or not.
All right, thank you. And I wasn't trying to be.
No, it's a great question because the definition has changed many times.
Oh, well.
Often hourly. No, but look, I mean, they're going to change those definitions to fit their profile and reduce their risk, and then give us the choice of paying more because the risk is greater while they're protecting their interests.
Yes, or determining, as many have, not to even bother to provide insurance in California.
Right.
Which is the subject of this slide, right? You see that our pool of potential carriers is
yes, that particular slide is just to give an idea of how this capacity has started to fall. There was a time when wildfire was not a huge issue prior to 2017, where wildfire coverage was actually just a throw-in in your excess policy that they gave you. But then once it became an issue, all of a sudden more carriers became more particular about whether it's something they wanted to cover or what their actual appetite was. And we've gone from the high teens to the low solo number of 8 now. That's in terms of the primary coverage. We now are able to tap into more reinsurance areas where they're willing to sit on top of our tower, something that they did not traditionally do. So we have been able to find the coverage. It's just a matter of what the cost would be for that coverage.
And when you say sit on top of our tower, you're talking about the money that is basically self-insured?
Yes, in this case, yes, because there was a time when that was a actual primary commercial insurance policy, but as that prices out or the carrier decided no longer to carry it, we have a paper policy in place, but it's really just self-insurance. And the only reason that paper policy is there because those insurers need something to build on top of.
Thank you.
beautiful. I think that answers all my questions.
Yes, unfortunately, I can't answer the one you really want to ask. How do we solve this problem?
Get there eventually. Thanks very much for your help.
Thanks for the information. It was
Thanks
very
for
helpful.
requesting that additional information,
Very
Commissioner.
helpful. So,
Motion to approve item 3.
okay. Motion, second. Any, without objection, 5 ayes for motion for number 3.
And as for number 2, does your office have a presentation for us on the work? Great. Hello.
Yes, we do. I have to check the time to see if it's still morning. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
My name is Evelyn Cortez Davis, and I'm the Chief of Staff for our CEO and Chief Engineer, Janice Quinones. And I do have a brief overview of the contract, unless you had specific questions that I can answer.
No, let's go through the overview, please.
Sure. So to give you a little background on this contract, on August 13th, this board approved a contract with Korn Ferry, which is a consultant company, for a term of 11 months for organizational design consulting services for the CEO's office. This is work that was deemed necessary in order for the transformational initiatives that our CEO had lined up basically for our organization, and that we had a number of different layers of areas of improvement that could be achieved, particularly with our executive leadership team. So the initial activities of the Corn Ferry contract, it was determined that there was some significant effort that needed to be expended specific to the power system organizational review that was not contemplated in the original scope of the contract. So we took a look at the original scope and have figured out what needed to be added in order to achieve the necessary organizational review for the power system, specifically to support that clean energy transition by 2035, which is absolutely critical to our organizational goals. So this amendment is serving two primary purposes. Number one, for board consideration, this amendment is to continue the use of Corn Ferry's Integrated Enterprise Leadership Framework and Impact Accelerator services, which they have been already providing for 6 months since they started work in September, and to continue that for an additional 12 months beyond their existing contract. In addition, to add scope to have them conduct an organizational review for the power system that is specific to the power system functions and divisions and organizational leadership within the system. So this amendment will not only allow those CEO Impact Accelerator services to continue, but also the power system organizational review during the second year of our CEO's tenure so that that transformation can continue. So the term that is proposed is to increase the contract amount by $1.44 million for a new agreement limit of $1.9 million, and to increase the term of the contract by 12 months. So the total contract would be 1 year and 11 months, and to expand that scope of work, like I mentioned, for the power system organizational review. That is all I have, so I'm happy to answer questions now.
Just my question on this, and I know that, I know generally a little bit about Corn Ferry, but it did seem to me that these were high prices. Just tell me what makes them this good that we need to increase this much.
Excellent question. And we did have a process that we went through with the original contract to understand the value that this consultant would bring to us, and to understand, because we had not had this specific type of service provided anytime in the recent past, to understand that we were receiving benefit for the ratepayers' dollars that we're investing.
Does that mean that we don't understand? No, it doesn't mean that we don't understand, does it, what we're actually going to get?
Yes. So what we went through was a request for information process to understand what the industry actually offers for these types of services and what is the going rate. So, Commissioner, because the understanding for us is we need to make sure that we are making the best possible use of ratepayer dollars. So we wanted to understand that the pricing had to be reasonable. And so we did that request for information. We received 22 responses. Of the 22 responses, 18 actually contained potential pricing information that we were able to use to determine that the pricing by Corn Ferry was actually well within the middle of the range for the types of services that we were expecting at the time of the original contract award.
Even that, evidently I didn't read that far to see exactly where they even fell, because I was thinking that they were at the very high end.
The high end was much higher.
Okay.
Much higher. Yes.
Well, like I said, I know the general reputation of them in other areas, but I wasn't aware of how that would be benefiting DWP. But of course, I know the work and the planning that our CEO wants to do to structure all of this out. And if they are helpful and it's a feasible cost, and we vetted others, up to 22 other prospects down to the 18, then you've answered my question.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Can you help me understand, will this help us satisfy that city council request that was proposed by CD5 about a year ago on
Performance.
performance organizational planning and our work on things like LA 100?
It will supplement it. So the one from CD5 was like everything on one request, right? And so when you think about transformations, when you put everything on the pot, if you don't know how to cook it, it's going to be really overwhelming for the kitchen, right?
One of those fires in my kitchen.
Yeah, one of your wildfires in your kitchen, Commissioner. But this will be two-stage. One is the transformation of the whole enterprise, and one of the first assessments of my time here has been that this organization has been really being run as three different companies inside, or departments inside the department, power, water, and joint, right? And so the overarching enterprise one is to bring it as an enterprise, and we are all DWP, and we're leveraging best practices, we're using the systems across the enterprise, we're looking at our workforce in a very strategic way, we're developing our people, our organizational structure matches our strategy. As part of that process, because we've been in that work, and that includes all our executive team and the team underneath them, the power system organization has been one that has been constantly fluctuating. I think they've gone through an organizational design almost every month. Last year, every month of the year, right? And so it was very obvious to me that they needed some consistency and just stability so that we can create the maturity that the power system needs. They do a lot of things very well, but there's things that are missing from wildfire mitigation perspective, from asset management, from other areas of the industry that are embedded into different organizations, but really not aligned to the benchmark. And so the power system one is to look at our organization and look at the different layers, from Dave's layers to his direct reports to the direct reports of those, the systems and processes that tied into it, tie it to the benchmark, and then move it into our strategic plan of where we want power system to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And that work requires a lot of hours and work with him, his direct team, and the team that report to the direct team that looks at banding, the levels, and all the other gaps that we need to fill in the organization.
So this is really something you, quote, inherited that needed to be really solidified and.
Oh, I got a lot of inheritance in this organization, yes.
Thank you.
Well, here's where I am on this. I think I really appreciate and understood the need for a quick sole source contract when you were coming in to kind of get your feet under you, get the support you needed to make some exec changes at the executive level, especially noting that anytime we have a change in general manager now to CEO, that there's going to be a lot of shakeup in those exempt positions. We have obviously met a lot of these wonderful people, like Norma, who you've hired recently, but I don't think we have gotten a really comprehensive understanding at the board level of the changes that have been made, what strategy those changes are based on, and what the work product or output from Korn Ferry has been so far, and how much that has informed your decision making. Mm-hmm. And so it's difficult for me to say, like, okay, let's 3x this sole source contract for a whole new line of work without me understanding, you know, what the results from the first round of work really were and getting that visibility. So unless we pull the item, I'm going to vote no on this today, just pending additional information, additional background on where we are. And so I'll leave that to you to decide how you want to handle that.
Maybe
And I can see how you got there, because that's why I started asking.
Yeah.
Maybe I can help with this.
Sure.
As part of the functional cost benchmarking study that we completed in a multi-year effort in about 2020, there were 17 major recommendations, and there were 5 really core recommendations. This study addresses 2 of those areas, and it's key. Good. It was integration of management, including career paths, which Janice was just talking about, and the other component was, in particular, help for power. So at the start of COVID, this study came out, unfortunately, and it went to sleep until Janice was hired. I think this is an important process. I think it needs to continue, and I think it is fairly priced.
Have you Do you feel like you've received any information on that first effort so far?
It's ongoing, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. I haven't followed up on that, but this has the core components.
Well,
That's encouraging to hear, Dr. Pickle. I guess, given, where you are, Commissioner McGraw, I'm wondering, where are we with the current contract? Is this time sensitive? Or if there was a desire from Commissioner McGraw to get a more in-depth briefing on the work so far, would we end up pausing or impacting the work if this was deferred to the next meeting?
We have been using the original contract to kickstart the power work, because we've been waiting for this to hit the agenda for several weeks now, months really. And Dave has just released a new organization with interim AGMs that are working on stabilizing the organization, but that's interim until we get to a final organizational design that ties to the benchmark. So slowing down the work will have an impact on our outcomes, especially our goals for the department. We can definitely do a debrief on what we've done so far. I think we'll end up in the same place.
Commissioner, speaking to your point, can you give us, Dr. Pickle, a little more of the historical background that brought us to this point? Because when you said about the COVID holding something in abeyance, that all of this is smoothing it out a little bit for me. I'm understanding exactly what the CEO needs now. I'm also understanding you, Commissioner, because that's where I was and why I started asking those questions. But I would appreciate just hearing what held it up. In fact, it would have already been in place before this CEO was even hired if we had been in a timely manner.
Because of the level of telecommuting and the difficulty of doing joint projects where people are having a hard time doing their operational duties, it was put on the back burner, as far as I could tell, by the GM at the time.
Yes, but what is it that we're trying to do here? Because you have the whole historical framework of why we need this in the first place.
There was a lack of integration on career paths, period. So that for people to step into management, out of IBEW into management, it was a step where you take a pay cut for reasons of lack of overtime, and you didn't know what your career path was going to be after that. And so that whole process, am I missing anything on that, Denise?
Well, I think the biggest part is having a leadership team that's integrated and ready to take on the work. And I think now we have the team to get the work going, right? And so you have to be able to collaborate, get on the enterprise mindset, and ensure that we get everybody marching to the same drumbeat. And a lot of the work that needs to happen is really understanding what's the right organizational design processes and systems that are going to drive the strategies for the future. And we have, as we've seen many times, disparate system across the different IT systems across different systems, but even inside the system, we have disparate systems inside the systems. Mm-hmm. The data is not flowing. There's no accountability to outcomes. And we do very well in capital delivery, but we don't do so well in other projects. And I think it's all a structural issue from an operating model perspective. And so a lot of the findings that I've seen, including the CD5 motion, is like, we want to know what's wrong and how to fix it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that are working, but there's a lot of things that need either a little bit of a tweak or a lot of tweak. And so this would help us prioritize some of that and put a system in place to tackle all the things that need to be improved.
Okay, well said. I just want to pick up one word I heard you say in this sensitive time of people being overly concerned about DEI. When you said integrated, you meant integration of systems versus integration of individuals, races, or gender.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and specifically, I think, across water, power, and joint. And this is something that we as a board have been speaking to, at least since I've been here for the last 2 years. We cannot succeed as an organization with the level of silos that we've had in the past, especially as we're tackling complex challenges like climate and, the other things that we're facing as an organization, it really is critical, the type of work that this CEO is tackling in terms of really getting the team to function as one enterprise and to really examine the different systems, softwares, et cetera, across these different units and ensure that we are employing best practices across them. So regardless of this specific vote, I just want to speak my support of that overall effort of integration across water, power, and joint, and really ensuring that we are taking a more strategic and approach that, recognizes the interdependence of complex systems and the nexus of water and power. So I know it's been this is an organization that has existed for over a century. And when you have that old of an organization, there are many processes that get in place and get sort of set over a long time, and it takes a lot to move things. It's a big ship to turn, and I really appreciate the work that the current leadership is doing to be continually innovative, to take best practices from across the industry and really look at how we can improve. So thank you for that.
Commissioner McGraw, with the additional information and that of our commissioner here and Dr. Pickle and the CEOs, do you still have the same unreadiness on this?
I am still not quite there. And maybe Dr. Pickle can help me, but I have sort of 3 data points floating around in my head. One is Dr. Pickle's about, career mapping and sort of integration across the organization for that. But then when I hear you explain the work we've done so far, I'm not hearing that emphasized. I'm hearing sort of our ways of working emphasized, breaking down silos, that sort of thing. All of which would be really interesting for us to understand what those findings have been so far, how we're implementing them, especially because the career path work, the proper term of which I cannot remember, is super interesting to me. What is the viable pathway out of a union-supported role into management? How do you encourage that? And I am noting that, a lot of the senior executives we've hired recently are not coming from within the ranks of DWP. They're not coming from out of an IBEW role into a management role. They're being hired as senior executives from external organizations.
Half of them, yes.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, because if
private
you look
industry.
around this circle, everybody's an ex-DWP employee in this.
At the desk.
Well, not an a continuing DWP employee.
Right, exactly.
Or like, continues to be DWP. No, a career DWP leader. Right.
Absolutely, and I have no problem with that. I want the best person for the best job. I do think we want to, emphasize, career opportunities here and keep people in house as long as possible. And I think we're doing that. I want to know in more detail how all of these things are working together before I approve a 3x increase on this budget item. And I think we can accomplish that between this meeting and the next meeting, hopefully without delaying because I do appreciate your perspective, NURIT. I do think that this is a critical challenge. It is a challenge unique to institutions at our size and our age. And one of the things I like the most about having you here is that you're willing to pick up challenges like this and do something about them. So please, don't see this as my own personal referendum on your effectiveness. I just, my fiscal responsibility here is to understand this item a little better before approving it. And I usually do feel that coming into these meetings, but there weren't supporting background materials on this that I could really take the time to educate myself with. And I want that level of detail before I approve.
I appreciate that. And you generally dig down deep on all this stuff. So we'll kick it 2 weeks, and that'll give you a chance to do a deep dive and reassure these guys they all have jobs. And we'll do it 2 weeks from now for certain.
A couple little facts to think about in the interim. One is DWP's budget, capital and operating, as you saw it here, was just short of $10 billion a year. And if you can manage to improve efficiency even a little bit, the cost of this project disappears into the dust. Two, an example of the siloed nature of DWP was a major change in the budget presentation that occurred in 2018, 2019, I think, was a separation of the joint system out separately from water and power. It was always presented as, this is the water budget, this is the power budget, and you didn't see any of the costs of the joint system being reflected. And when you pull it out, all of a sudden, the joint system is, in fact, 1 year bigger than power in terms of head count. And to see that presented in this, and the first time we did that, one of the budget staff said to me, I've never seen it pulled out this way. This is really different. So that was an example of the extreme siloing that occurred in this. And this is, as you address the issue of siloing, it would improve the organization a lot.
Thank you so much for that. So
Thanks,
if
Fred.
this was 1 month later, we would not have heard even this background.
Yes.
I mean, what are we going to do?
Well, one month, yes, 2 months, no, actually, but yeah, but your point is well taken.
Yes. I don't know what we're going to do.
And as for this information, we can do it separately, offline, individually, or just a management report at the next meeting before we revote on the item would be fine too. Depends on how much discretion you want to exercise around the information in it. So we'll let you be the judge of that.
Okay, we'll kick this to the next one, and we'll discuss the best way to make the presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
To the next one, that's a month, not in 2.
I'm sorry?
When is that?
The 25th.
2 weeks from today. Any other management reports? Any reports from commissioners on committee activity?
Yeah, 2 committee meetings to report out on. One is Investment Committee, which I am the solo commissioner on. Investment Committee met on February 11th and reviewed the investment policy for the department, and there were no changes recommended, and that policy was approved today as part of the agenda. And then we also had our audit committee meeting, which President KATZ and I serve on. Audit committee at our meeting on the 25th received a report from KPMG on the 2024 audits and also heard updates from internal audit about the progress on the recommendations. Thank you.
And then one quick update on our what's now being called the Climate Cabinet for the mayor, which used to be our ad hoc committee on partnering with LA SAN. We're going to have some major agenda items around our Pure Water LA project at a next board meeting on March 25th. And thanks to your deference and to Shantae's help, we're going to have a sort of a joint official public meeting with Public Works commissioners here. So, to sort of showcase the work that we're doing together really collaboratively and the deep integration between our 2 departments in pursuit of our sort of recycled water future here in the LA Basin. So for those of you watching at home, tune in next week for a joint DWP, 2 weeks, sorry, for a joint DWP and Public Works Board meeting, which I think will be a first.
Yeah.
And that should give all the salient updates on all the stuff we've been working on behind the scenes to align ourselves for Pure Water LA.
If Public Works can get past security.
Yes.
All right, moving through the rest, filed items, nothing, motions for future consideration.
Did we approve the minutes?
I'm just about to do that, thank you. I have a motion, a second, to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Without objection, all members present as aye votes. That is now approved.
Motion to approve
There's a KATZ
the
and a
minutes. Yeah.
Thanks.
And who's presenting?
There's a litter of cats.
And then I have one more thing before we move into closed, if we're there. So for the closed session today, I will be recusing myself from item 04. This is existing litigation involving the University of California, UCLA, and as UCLA is my employer, I will recuse myself and not be engaged in that discussion or vote.
I think you ought to vote against them.
What's that? Thank you.
All right, any other business to come before the commission? I want to thank you all for being here and the questions and your presence in the audience as well. Thank you all very much. Valerie will say the magic words that take us into closed session.
Thank you. Chief Deputy City Attorney Valerie Flores. Today we have several items for closed session. The board shall recess into closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding several items. First, under California Government Code Section 54956.9D1, the case of Francisco Cruz Canales versus Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Los Angeles Superior Court case number 23 SMCV 00661. The second item, also under California Government Code Section 54956.9D1, the case entitled A1 Investment Trust versus Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Los Angeles Superior Court case number 22 STCV 17551. The third matter, also under California Government Code Section 54956.9D1, the case of Mary Shustrin versus Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Los Angeles Superior Court case number 23 STCV 14794. And finally, the fourth matter, also under California Government Code Section 54956.9D1, a case entitled The Regents of the University of California, UCLA versus Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, claim number 1049904. After the closed session, the board will publicly report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention thereon of every member present in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957.1.
Okay. We're off to closed session. Thank you all.
The time is 12:58. Closed session recessed back into open session.
Assistant City Attorney Felix LeBron on items to report out from closed session. Item 01, Francisco Cruz Canales v. LEDWP. This is Los Angeles Superior Court, case number 23 MCV 00661. The board consented to the adoption of a settlement for $200,000 with the following votes. Moved by Commissioner NCATZ, seconded by Commissioner Pinder. Ayes were NCATZ, RCATZ, MCGRAW, Pinder, and LEHRER. Motion carried. On item 02, this is A1 Investment Trust v. LADWP, Los Angeles Superior Court case number 22 STCV 17551. Board consented to the adoption of a settlement for $475,000 with the following votes. Moved by Commissioner NCATZ, seconded by Commissioner Pinder. Ayes, NCATZ, RCATZ, MCGRAW, Pinder, and LEHRER. Motion was carried. Item 03, Mary Schustrin v. LADWP, Los Angeles Superior Court case number 23 STCV 14794. The board consented to the adoption of a settlement for $450,000 with the following votes. Moved by Commissioner McGraw, seconded by Commissioner Pinder. Ayes, NCATZ, RCATZ, McGraw, Pinder, and LEHRER. Motion carried. Item 04, Regents of UCLA, LADWP, claim number 1049904. Commissioner NCATZ was recused. She exited the room at 12:50 p.m. and did not return. The board consented to the adoption of an inverse condemnation claim for $3,878,226.52 with the following votes. Moved by Commissioner McGraw, seconded by Commissioner Pinder. The ayes were RCATZ, McGraw, Pinder, and LEHRER. The recusal was Commissioner NCATZ. The motion was carried.
Concluding at 1:01 p.m., the meeting has adjourned.